The afternoon sun cast long and gentle shadows across the quiet neighborhood, where two houses stood as witnesses to a sudden and chaotic afternoon. It was a street where families had lived for years and where the boundaries of property were marked not just by fences, but by a mutual understanding of peace. On one side of the street lived the Shepherd family, who had called their house a home for 15 years. Across from them was Joseph Hale, a relative newcomer, who had moved in about 4 years prior. This story began on a Sunday afternoon on the 5th of March in the year 2023 at approximately 2:30. The air was filled with the promise of a productive day. Ethan Shepherd, a young man with a sense of duty, was preparing for a significant milestone in his life. He was scheduled to practice driving with his mother in preparation for his upcoming test. Their faithful companion, a German shepherd named Buck, was part of the plan. The idea was simple and pleasant. They would drive around the city, while Buck sat contentedly in the back seat, observing the world passing by through the window. However, just as they were about to depart, Ethan realized he needed to return to the house for a moment. He left his mother and Buck in the yard. In that brief window of time, the tranquility of the suburban afternoon shattered. Buck was unleashed as he was moments away from entering the car. He was wandering the front yard, smelling the grass and enjoying the fresh air. His mother stood in the driveway, watching over him. She saw the neighbor Joseph Hale in his garage with the door open. With him were two powerful and large dogs known as cane corsos named Bruno and Beulah. These dogs were also unleashed. Within seconds, the natural instincts of the animals took over. The conflict began when the dogs noticed each other across the property line. Bruno, the black cane corso, took off running. He bypassed the small decorative fence that stood only as high as a person's knees and charged onto the Shepherd property. The scene transformed into a whirlwind of barking and motion. Buck found himself defending his own territory as the larger dogs descended upon him. The peaceful Sunday was replaced by the sound of a dogfight. Ethan's mother reacted with the fierce protectiveness of a guardian. She ran toward the chaos, screaming for the dogs to stop. In a moment of desperation, she ran into her house and grabbed a baseball bat which the family kept near the door for protection. She was not a person of violence, but the sight of her beloved dog being attacked by two larger animals filled her with a need to intervene. Ethan heard the commotion from the bathroom and rushed outside to find his mother barefoot and shouting while his dog was locked in a struggle with the neighbor's pets. Joseph Hale also rushed into the fray. He attempted to separate the animals by grabbing the collar of his dog Beulah. In the heat of the struggle, Joseph was bitten on his hands and wrists. The fight eventually ended as the dogs were pulled apart, and Bruno retreated back toward his own yard. The physical battle was over, but the emotional and legal journey was just beginning. The scene shifted to the dignified halls of the courtroom, where Judge Judy sat as the arbiter of truth. The atmosphere was formal and heavy with the weight of responsibility. Ethan Shepherd was suing Joseph Hale for $322.90 to cover the veterinary bills resulting from Buck's injuries, and he was also seeking damages for emotional distress, bringing the total claim to $10,000. Joseph Hale had filed a counterclaim for the same amount, alleging that he had been assaulted and that it was the Shepherd dog that had caused his injuries. Judge Judy began the proceedings with her characteristic sharp focus. She asked Ethan how long he had lived on the property. 15 years, he replied. He was the established resident, while Joseph was a newcomer. The judge examined a photograph of the two properties. She noted the proximity of the driveways and the height of the fence. It was a small fence designed more for visual appeal than for containment. The testimony turned to the details of the afternoon. Ethan's mother explained that Buck was a well-behaved dog who was simply waiting to go for a ride. She admitted the dog was unleashed, but emphasized that he was on their own property. The judge listened carefully, probing the logic of her actions. Why did you not call the dog to the car? Why did you walk over to him instead? The judge, who was a dog owner herself, spoke about the common habits of people with their pets. She pointed out that a 4-year-old dog would usually follow a command to come to the car. Then the focus shifted to Joseph Hale. He admitted that his garage door was open and his dogs were unleashed. He claimed that the Shepherd dog had come to the fence line and growled, which prompted his dogs to react. However, under the careful questioning of the judge, the truth became clear. Even if the other dog had growled, Joseph's dogs were the ones that left their property and entered the yard of the neighbor. The judge spoke with a voice of experience and authority. She explained a fundamental principle of pet ownership. Dogs growl. That is what dogs do. It is a responsibility of the owner to keep their animals under control at all times. Because Joseph's dogs were unleashed and entered the property of another, he was legally responsible for the consequences. The conversation then turned to a broader issue of safety. The judge asked Joseph about his history as a dog owner. It was revealed that this was not the first time his dogs had been involved in an incident with Buck. Several years prior, there had been another injury. Joseph had paid those veterinary bills out of pocket because his renter's insurance had lapsed. The judge pointed out the extreme danger of owning large and powerful breeds like Cane Corsos without proper insurance or containment. Sarah Rose, the legal assistant, provided statistics about different dog breeds and how they are viewed by insurance companies. German Shepherds and Cane Corsos were both on a list of breeds that are often restricted because of their potential to cause significant damage. The judge used this information to educate those in the room. She explained that owning a large dog comes with a large responsibility. If a person wants less responsibility, they should consider a smaller pet like a Chihuahua. The judge turned her attention to the financial claims. Ethan had asked for $10,000, but his actual veterinary bills were only $322.90. The judge asked how the smaller amount translated into such a large request. Ethan spoke of emotional distress and the trauma his son experienced after witnessing the fight. The judge acknowledged the stress of the situation, but remained focused on the tangible damages. Joseph's counterclaim was addressed next. He showed pictures of the bite marks on his hands. The judge was unmoved. She explained that because he had failed to control his dogs and they had entered the neighbor's yard, he was responsible for any injuries that occurred during the fight he had precipitated. One cannot claim damages for an injury sustained while their own animals are trespassing and attacking others. The final judgment was clear and fair. Joseph Hale was ordered to pay the $322 for the veterinary bills. The counterclaim was dismissed. The legal battle ended not with a sense of triumph for one side over the other, but with a lesson learned about the importance of being a responsible neighbor and a diligent pet owner. As the parties left the courtroom, the tension of the past few months began to dissipate. Ethan expressed a hope that they could return to being neighbors who lived in peace. He was satisfied that the bills would be paid, though he still felt the weight of the emotional impact on his family. Joseph accepted the ruling, acknowledging that the focus should remain on the safety of everyone involved. The story serves as a reminder of the delicate balance required in a community. It highlights the value of rules that protect citizens and their beloved animals. It teaches that while we may love our pets and see them as gentle companions, they are still animals with instincts that must be managed. True neighborly love is shown through the respect of boundaries and a commitment to keeping one another safe. In the end, the courtroom provided a space for truth to be told and for a path forward to be established where two neighbors could once again share a street in harmony.